NMH at 1 informs on the news making waves in Namibia, Africa and the rest of the world during the lunch hour.
Now coming up in today's broadcast, NIPDB launches one-stop center. SAN leader expresses displeasure in inhumane treatment of his people. Roads Authority urges compliance with the rules of the road this festive season. 11 people killed in a stampede at an overcrowded stadium concert in Kinshasa.
These stories, economic news, sports updates and international headlines coming your way, read to you by Diana Master and Ashwin Berry.
Now in today's midday news update, a 6-year-old child drowned in the river that runs to the Ghanaian Dam between Single Quarter and Grijsblok yesterday afternoon. As seen in this footage, efforts have been ongoing since yesterday to find the body of the child. Veteran diver Percy Openshaw of Crisis Response has been roped in for the search at the Grijsblok sewage dam, and the body of 6-year-old Jaden Isaacs was found earlier today. According to information received, two young children were playing by the river, and the one pushed his friend as a joke but then tried to catch him as he fell into the river.
Now, in our visual news segment, we bring you news and community stories from across the country. Stay with us.
The My.NA Cars Show provides viewers with the best in-class cars content, engaging interviews, as well as a showcase of the latest cars-related news, products, and services. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact My.NA at synergy.com.na. My.NA Cars, more than just a ride.
The leader of the San community in Omaheke region, Chief Frederick Langman, has expressed displeasure at what he termed inhumane treatment his subjects who were resettled on farm Schoonheld have been receiving from the government. Chief Langman made these comments during a courtesy call with the chairperson of the National Council, Lucas Sinimba Muha. Now, Muha was in Omaheke region for an outreach program designed to spread awareness and educate members of the public about the lawmaking process and how they can participate. This footage is courtesy of the Parliament of the Republic of Namibia.
Dis wat ons uitland. Hoekom word ons altyd regtig gesê iets wat ons kan voel? Nee, ons is op in die regering.
We have challenges about our humanness. Humanity is a problem that we have. We were given a big book which says that Schoonheid, this settlement is given for the San people, but then again we are told that no, that is just a story. It's maybe not a real thing.
En hierdie storie maak ons baie seer van ons hierso as bestuurders. Ons Leinster settlement is ons baas. Dit het ek geskryf aan president self gegee. Ek het self maar tot nou toe ek geen nie antwoord nie. Ek het gesê daai tyd het ons president sê nie jong met baas doodgemaak. Nou baas skielik omdraai en baas is Leinster settlement. As Leinster settlement gesê dan moet jy net sê ja baas. Jy kan nie sê nee, dat is so.
We are here, the place was given to us, but maybe not in real terms, because land resettlement remains a boss to us. And if they have said something, then we cannot dispute that. We just have to accept. We have complained, we wrote letters even up to the president, but up to now, we don't have any replies.
En dit maak ons. Wanneer ons is boos met ons is dom. Vandaag praat ons dom uit, want ons word so gesê, as jy daar kom, dan word jy so gesê. Ek skuld. Toe ek het baie keer gehoor, daar is grond gegee deur prime minister Marco Siko. Het die San mense op Epikiro post 3 op die hele omgewing die grond gegee. Toe ek daar gegaan het, skuld ek nog. Ek het daar gewaarsku deur Elia Kabari. Elia Kabari het gesê, jy het verkeerd gedoen. Toe jy daar in Epicuro gegaan het, moet jy eers by die chief van Banderos gekom het.
This is a painful story because we are given confusing stories. We are given pieces of land, like we were given, some people were given a piece of land in Epicuro Post 3. I went there, but then I was warned that I was not supposed to go there. I first had to get permission from the Obambandero leadership.
And
Nanangula Wanja, the chairperson and CEO of the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board, launched the board's one-stop center last Friday. The center is one of the initiatives aimed at improving the ease of doing business in Namibia and hopes to bring various services for potential investors under one roof. This video was contributed by Jemima Biekus. Let's have a look.
To see. Of course, there is various services, but your normal registration for employee, VAT, tax registration, and so forth, and queries relating to NAMRA, and whatever NAMRA offers you. So you say, okay, do I limit to that one? So mostly at this stage, you will not come and make your payment there. So I think that is one. And we are hoping that you are making your payment online. Because that is enabled. And then, of course, submitting returns. We are hoping that there is online submission that is happening, but you can also come and submit your returns here at the center. And then your environmental impact assessment, you should be able to come and submit them here, and then also get your queries addressed here. And then your entry working visas. I think today on the agenda you will see two people that are speaking. It's Home Affairs and it's Mines and Energy. And yes, there is many institutions that they are working with, but at this stage we are saying that those two are our champions. And they are our champions because Home Affairs was the first one that almost gave us full access, if I can put it that way. They looked at their risk and they said, whatever risk will allow us to do, you have got it. To the extent that they say you've got access to our system, upload your application, deliver them to the immigration control selection board, and it's already up running, which means after we finish today and you've got your application for something and you are an investor, please, we are going to say that one because it's going to be registered investors. If you are not registered investor with us, you will not be able to get service there. Then you can already start submitting your Home Affairs documents there at the second door when we go to the place. So that is our first champion there. Our second champion, you want to clap for them? Our second champion is Ministry of Mines and Energy. The other day I was at the ministry and that they say, Namura, you are too slow. I'm every day seeing these people that I've given you. I want them out of here. When are they leaving? So I said, okay. Monday, they are going, or Monday, the 31st of October, they should be showing up there. So they were the first to sign our MOU, and if you want to apply for your renewal of licenses or your licenses for EPLs and so forth, you will be able to deliver them here, and you will also be able to have your queries attended to. We will talk later about how all that works. So those are the two that I wanted to go into detail. Like I said, those are our champions. We do, of course, have other champions that are still finalizing. Their centers are there. We are still working on exactly, yes, focal point, how will that work?
Roads Authority's Transportation Executive Sydney Boyce said as the festive season approaches, Roads Authorities wants to ensure that everyone is in compliance with the rules of the road. This is, according to him, Roads Authority's Transportation Executive noted that many drivers try to get away with breaking the law. He advises the public to check their cars at home to avoid inconveniences. Elizabeth Joseph contributed this clip.
Visas on arrival would be accepted. Secondly, we promise and we are meeting this standard, that holiday and tourist visas and transit visas will be issued within 10 working days. Work visas, that is now the short-term employment permits, within 10 working days. I think that is definitely the case. We will continue to meet this standard together with NIPDB, because the counter that we have here, manned by you, as you have indicated, we've given you full access to the system. We are also in an advanced stage of launching an online system where people can apply online. That will also be done before the end of this year. So in terms of the employment permits, it takes a little bit longer. Remember, there are different levels. And in many cases, specifically for the investment part, now everything is called employment permit. When we move to the migration bill, we would look at different categories, because an employee and investor are actually two different groups, and they should be treated differently, two different requirements. So we are looking at that aspect, but for that, in terms of the assessment, that is done by NIPDB. So, Nangula, if there are any delays, we know who to blame, but you have got our commitment in terms of the delivery.
There was just too much going on, with former mining commissioner says Mines and Energy Minister in a story carried by Namibian Sun. This and more stories from Namibia's daily newspapers after the break. Stay with NMH at 1.
Tourismus Namibia is a weekly tourism show that brings you the latest news in the tourism industry and topics related to that. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact tourismus@synergy.com.na for news and advertising related queries. Tourismus, bring the world to Namibia.
Thank you for staying with NMH at 1. Let's take a look at what the lead stories are in Namibia's daily newspapers. The Namibian Sun reports that Mines and Energy Minister Tom Alwendo says there was just too much going on with former mining commissioner Erasmus Shivolo, whose 14-year reign came crashing down on Friday, days after damning allegations surfaced that Chinese lithium miner Xinfeng Investments paid mining ministry officials bribes in order to push out Kaloa Mining Enterprise from a lucrative mining deposit in Ace. Alwendo moved to remove Shivolo from his job. The minister replaced him with Isabella Kanji Chishia, a former deputy director for mining in the ministry. 2 weeks ago, Alwendo says Alwendo was forced to defend himself on social media after a widely circulated message alleged that the minister, his technical advisor Ralph Muyamba, and Shivolo accepted bribes to allegedly block the renewal of the exclusive prospective license of Kaloa Mining Enterprises. On the paper's page 3, it is reported that Ombudsman Basilius Jakuga has said that recognized traditional authorities are as strong as any other legal authority. He was speaking at a 3-day human rights training in Ondangwa recently. He said that if someone is issued a permit to occupy land by a traditional authority, it is as legal as any other body. The Office of the Ombudsman is responsible for investigating public offices. In the case of an individual and a public institution, his office will investigate, Jakuga said.
Now, headlining Republicans, page 1, the funeral of 6-year-old Adriano Oswin, whose body was cut into pieces and discarded in a 10 kg maize meal bag at Karibib, has sparked questions about the safety of the Namibian child. Oswin's mother, Rita Sabers, was unable to stand on her feet as she bade a painful goodbye to her young son, who was laid to rest at Karibib on Saturday. Sigrid Gebeb, a community activist and former police officer, pleaded with the community to break their silence, urging them to speak up if they saw anything or anyone who may have lured the preschooler away from his home. Now, according to the paper's page 3, Windhoek's Mayor Sadek Avanas says allegations are untrue that she disregarded internal procedures in 3 days in 3 days long agricultural school in Brazil, for which the municipality spent 230,000 Namibian dollars. The municipality's manager for social and youth development, James Kalundu, accompanied her on the journey. In a separate story, the paper reports that the mining company LK Mining obtained permission from the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism to start mining diamonds on the seabed at Hottentots Bay, about 60 kilometers north of Luderitz, with mining license ML220.
Now on its front page, the Allgemeine Zeitung today, on apparently failing rescue management. Critics of the way in which the CBNRM program is currently run in Namibia claim that the low game population that has been established during the recent count, especially in northwestern Namibia, proves that the principle of sustainability is endangered by conflicts of interest. Repeated droughts seem to have proven that communal game management fails when the affected community needs more pasture for their livestock as a result of the drought, and also tries to supplement their dwindling income through hunting as a result of drought-related losses. On the paper's page 3, it focuses on the appeal by the Namibian Broadcasting Corporation against a ruling by the Media Complaints Board in the Office of the Media Ombudsman on 24 June 2022. In that ruling, NBC was found guilty of having breached Section 22.1 of the Media Ethics and Conduct Code, which states that a public broadcaster must and should do everything in its power to ensure that the views of both sides are always fairly presented in a program discussing controversial issues that are in the public interest.
Stay with us as we continue with the newspaper review shortly.
In Business 7, you get news on current economic, financial, and business matters in Namibia. The weekly show features interviews with experts and in-depth analysis of burning issues in a way that caters for ordinary Namibians and business connoisseurs alike. For news-related or advertising queries, please contact B7 at synergy.com.na.
Thank you for staying with NMH at 1. Now, continuing with the newspaper review, the Namibian highlights the city of Windhoek's vote to remove the statue of Kurt von Francois, which stands in the front of the city of Windhoek headquarters. The great-grandson of Kurt von Francois has fumed at the Windhoek councillors, labeling them cowards for voting for the removal of the statue of a man he says did a lot for this country. The council last Thursday voted that the statue be removed and be displayed at the Windhoek City Museum. This follows a petition handed to the city in 2020. In a separate report, the SWAPO chief whip in the National Assembly, Hamunyera Hambuyuka, has acknowledged that the rampant absenteeism of ruling party lawmakers sets a bad precedent and hampers the legislative process. On the paper's page 3, it highlights that the Otapi Town Council raised 506,200 Namibian dollars at its mayoral dinner and fundraising event held at the town on Saturday. The largest amount came from Nam Water, which donated 200,000 Namibian dollars, and Otapi Town Council, which donated 100,000 Namibian dollars. Otapi Mayor Selma Asino Shauyambwako said the funds would be used to develop 5 informal settlements. The town council has budgeted 400,000 Namibian dollars for the installation of a sewer system in one of the informal settlements.
Now, Isabella Chicha is the country's new mining commissioner after taking over from Erasmus Shifolo, who had served in the position since 2008. This is reported by the New Era in the lead story. Chicha, the deputy director of mining in the ministry, takes the reins of the country's leading economic sector, which accounts for roughly 10% of gross domestic product every year. The New Era's page 3 highlights that the High Court has declined to set aside the decision of the Pharmacy Council of Namibia not to terminate the resignation of Dis-Chem pharmacies as community pharmacies in Namibia. Last week, Judge Nate Ndawondapo said the Pharmaceutical Society of Namibia launched its review application late and failed to furnish the court with a reasonable explanation.
Now, the around 1.25 billion Namibian dollars increase in nearly 109,000 civil servant salaries in 2022-23 could boost consumption spending by more than 4 billion Namibian dollars in the current fiscal year. One could argue that high public wages support economic activity through consumption spending, which accounts for 75% of gross domestic product on average. Simone Storm said in their analysis of Finance Minister Ipumbu Shimi's mid-year budget review tabled last week.
Now, Namibia wants to learn from Ethiopia how it organizes its large population of communal farmers to make them more productive. This story leading us into economic news on the other side of this break with Ashwin Bedi.
The Evening Review is a daily interview-based talk show that dissects and expounds on current affairs as they occur in Namibia. The show aims at reaching Namibians of all age groups who seek better understanding of the state of current affairs in the country. This show is broadcasted on NTV, 1up2.com and cross-shared on the following Facebook platforms: Namibian Sun and Namibia Media Holdings. The Evening Review focuses on interviews, latest news and up-to-the-minute current events. Contact Evening at synergy.com.na. Evening Review, unpacking today's pertinent issues.
Heading into the economic news on NMH at 1, Namibia wants to learn from Ethiopia how it organizes its large population of communal farmers to make them more productive, as well as the strategies implemented to ensure farmers have access to adequate services, finance, equipment, marketing and processing infrastructure. This is according to Deputy Agriculture Minister Anna Shiweda, who said the bulk of farmers in both Namibia and Ethiopia are predominantly smallholder and subsistence farmers who practice mixed crop and livestock farming. However, one of the main differences in the two countries' agricultural systems is that Namibia practices both commercial and communal livestock farming and and has a well-developed livestock subsector, she said. Now, according to literature, the livestock farming system in Ethiopia seems to be mainly smallholder and communal in nature. The Deputy Minister added she was speaking at a meeting with an Ethiopian delegation on a benchmarking visit this week to learn about Namibia's best agriculture practices. Now, Namibia, through the Agriculture Ministry, is hosting the delegation from 24 to 29 October. The group is headed by Dr. Fikru Regasa Gari, Ethiopia's Minister for Livestock and Fisheries. Shiweda said the country is ready and willing to share information with Ethiopia on various farming systems practiced here. She added that Ethiopia produces more varieties and quantities of crops than Namibia has a larger cattle production of about 65 million compared to Namibia's 2.5 million. South Africa has secured $500 million to aid its transition from coal to renewables. The Climate Investment Funds, a multilateral climate fund affiliated with the World Bank, had approved the funding. Last year, South Africa, along with Indonesia and India, were invited to participate in the CIF's Accelerating Coal Transition Investment Program. The participating countries had to develop an investment plan. According to a statement from the CIF, its governing board had endorsed the plans for South Africa and Indonesia, and they would each receive $500 million in concessional risk-bearing capital. Creasy added that estimates indicate over the next 8 years, South Africa needs over $60 billion in investments to support its transition. According to CIF, the investment plan from South Africa will support the retiring of several coal-fired plants and bring online clean power and energy storage systems. Also, workers and communities affected by the transition, especially women and vulnerable groups, would also be supported. South Africa's energy sector is the most carbon-intensive among G20, mostly due to the dominance of coal. A major part of reducing emissions is linked to deploying more renewables. Let's have a look at the economic indicators. The Namibian dollar has dropped in value when weighed against these major currencies, but rose against the Chinese yuan. First Rand Namibia Limited stocks are now trading at 30 Namibian dollars and 63 cents after a 0.01% rise in price. No other changes are seen on the NSX, with local index remaining unchanged and overall index dropping by 0.35%. All these major commodities have experienced a drop in price. 11 people were killed on Saturday, including 2 police officers, in a crash at an overcrowded stadium concert in Kinshasa. The full story coming up soon.
Iranga Talk brings you community news in the Iranga region. For news-related or advertising queries, contact Iranga Talk at synergy.com.na. Iranga Talk, our community, your news.
Heading into news from Africa, 11 people were killed on Saturday, including 2 police officers, in a crash at an overcrowded stadium concert in Kinshasa headlined by Congolese singer Fally Ipupa, the Interior Minister said. The capital stadium of Martyrs was packed over its capacity of 80,000, and some of the crowd ended up forcing their way into the VIP and reserved sections. Police have recorded 11 deaths, including 10 as a result of suffocation and crash, and 7 hospitalizations, said Minister Daniel Aselo Okito in a statement. Security forces had earlier fired tear gas in an effort to disperse violent crowds in the streets outside the stadium, where many had gathered ahead of the concert by Kinshasa-born Ipupa, who has won acclaim in Democratic Republic of Congo, Europe, and the world. The eventual number of attendees inside the stadium vastly exceeded the number state and private security personnel could control. In 2020, French police evacuated the Gare de Lyon railway station in Paris after people started fires nearby in unrest ahead of a planned Ipupa concert. The country's Interior Minister Daniel Aselo Okito has called for the organizers to be punished for failing to limit the number of attending the concert. Congolese singer Fally Ipupa has given his condolences to the families of 11 people who died on Saturday during his concert in the largest stadium in the capital, Kinshasa. In a half-hour address broadcast on Sunday, Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo addressed the nation to explain the raft of measures his government will be taking to see its way out of financial turmoil, including measures to support domestic production. Among these measures, Nana Akufo-Addo announced a 30% cut in budgeted discretionary expenditures and salaries of the president, vice president, ministers, deputy ministers, and political office holders. We are in a crisis. I do not exaggerate when I say so. I cannot find an example in history when so many malevolent forces have come together at the same time. But as we have shown in other circumstances, we shall turn this crisis into an opportunity to resolve not just the short-term urgent problems, but the long-term structural problems that continue to bedevil our economy, expressed the Ghanaian leader. The rise of the COVID-19 pandemic ushered in an era of disillusionment. Growth slowed and money borrowed in the markets became increasingly high in price. Inflation in the country is rising to over 37%, while the currency is depreciating at an unforeseen pace. Since the beginning of the year, the cedi has lost over 40% against the dollar. Most importantly, debt, and Achilles heel of the Ghanaian economy, has soared. It now accounts for nearly 80% of the country's gross domestic product, an insurmountable burden that has compelled the government in Accra to break with its 3-year strike from demanding aid from the IMF. The Rwandan authorities have set up an Ebola prevention booth at the Gatuna border crossing with Uganda. Anyone who crosses the border is invited to have their temperature taken, and if they have symptoms, they are placed in a quarantine room before being transported to hospital. This is where we receive people who come from Uganda and who show symptoms of Ebola. We try to find out as much as possible before they arrive in Rwanda, where they have been in contact case or not. Afterwards, they are transferred to the hospital in Byumba, said Console Niwamahoro, member of the Outbreak Prevention Unit. At least 60 people showed potential symptoms of Ebola, such as fever, but after testing and quarantine, no one tested positive for the disease. John Gilbert, a Kenyan citizen crossing the border, said, "I have very little information about Ebola because where I come from, people are not scared of Ebola. You hear that it exists in some parts of Uganda, but not at the Bozia border." Uganda declared an outbreak of the Sudan strain of Ebola on September the 20th. The epicenter is a rural community in central Uganda, about 150 kilometers from the capital, Kampala. In South Korea, more than 150 people were killed in a crowd surge and stampede, the cause of which is still unclear. You're still with NMH at 1, and Diana will be back with international news.
3, 2, 1.
We Talk brings you community news that lies at the heart of Windhoek residents. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact wetalk@synergy.com.na. You live, we talk. Into our international news. More than 150 people, including 26 foreigners, mostly in their teens and 20s, were killed in a crowd surge and stampede, the cause of which is still unclear in the popular cosmopolitan district of the South Korean capital, Itaewon, located close to a former U.S. military base and renowned for its bars and clubs. It is estimated that around 100,000 people, many wearing elaborate Halloween costumes, had descended upon the district Saturday night for the first major Halloween celebration since South Korea lifted most COVID-19 restrictions. The district, which was immortalized by the popular 2020 K-drama hit Itaewon Classroom, is a warren of steeply sloping, twisted alleyways on either side of the main road. The crowd was exceptionally dense on Saturday night, eyewitnesses told AFP. The stampede took place in a narrow sloping alley near the Hamilton Hotel in Itaewon. In another tragic story, at least 81 people were killed in the western Indian state of Gujarat on Sunday when a footbridge packed with sightseers enjoying holiday festivities collapsed and plunged them into the river below. Reuters TV footage showed dozens of people clinging onto the cables and twisted remains of the bridge over the Machu River in the town of Morbi as emergency teams struggled to rescue them. Some clambered up the broken structure to try to make their way to the riverbanks, while others swam to safety. Moving right along, workers have broken out of Apple's largest iPhone assembly factory in China after a COVID outbreak forced staff to lock down at the workplace. Videos shared online showed about 10 people jumping a fence outside the plant owned by manufacturer Foxconn in the central city of Zhengzhou. Chinese people and businesses are continuing to grapple with President Xi Jinping's rigid zero COVID policy. It is not clear how many cases of COVID have been identified at the factory. However, in the last week, Zhengzhou, the capital of China's Henan province, reported 167 locally transmitted infections, up from 97 the week before, according to Reuters news agency. The city of about 10 million people was partially locked down as a result, as China continues to use strict lockdown measures to deal with COVID. Foxconn, which acts as a supplier to US-based Apple, has hundreds of thousands of workers at its Zhengzhou complex and has not provided an official count of how many are infected. The Taiwan-based company claimed on Sunday that it would not stop workers from leaving. Now, after the break, we take a look at the news headlining the local sports scene. Stick around for more. Now getting into our local sports stories, Namibian featherweight boxer Sakaria Desert Storm Lucas with his team are adding final touches to his preparation as he readies to fight American Raymond Ford. The two boxers will exchange on 12 November for the WBA Continental America's featherweight title at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in Cleveland, United States of America. Erwin Haimdura, the head coach of the women's national hockey team, yesterday said the just-ended hockey test series has assisted them in getting ready for the World Cup. The Dr. Hage Geingob match between the Windhoek Draft Velviches and Windhoek Draft Griquas is set for this weekend. Tickets to the match are available at Web Tickets. Now, after the break, we take a look at the international sports scene, starting with Marcus Rashford and what he said.
The Evening Review is a daily interview-based talk show that dissects and expounds on current affairs as they occur in Namibia. The show aims at reaching Namibians of all age groups who seek better understanding of the state of current affairs in the country. This show is broadcasted on NTV, 1up2.com and cross-shared on the following Facebook platforms: Namibian Sun and Namibia Media Holdings. The Evening Review focuses on interviews, latest news and up-to-the-minute current events. Contact evening@synergy.com.na. Evening Review, unpacking today's pertinent issues.
Now let's get into our international sports. Manchester United forward Marcus Rashford said there is a different energy at the club now and that he's feeling fully motivated after poor performances last season cast doubt about his future at Old Trafford. Rashford scored his 100th goal for the club in Sunday's 1-0 Premier League victory over West Ham United, becoming the first United player to hit that mark since Wayne Rooney in 2009. Reiss Nelson was the unlikely hero as Arsenal retook top spot in the Premier League with a 5-0 thrashing of Nottingham Forest on Sunday. Nelson was introduced for the first time in the Premier League this season after Bukayo Saka was forced off with a concerning injury for England boss Gareth Southgate just weeks ahead of the World Cup. Brazilian superstar Neymar's trial in Spain over his transfer to Barcelona in 2013 is expected to wrap up Monday after Spanish prosecutors last week dropped their fraud charges against the player. The 30-year-old and the 8 other defendants, including his parents who manage his affairs and 2 former Barca presidents, will be allowed to make closing arguments to the Barcelona court. If you're just joining us, this is Animated One, and we'll get into the highlights from today's broadcast shortly. But before that, it is a Friday and the social... Sorry, my apologies. Let's take a quick break.
Take a load off and tune into another episode of Brave Namibia as we take a look at both ordinary and extraordinary Namibians. Brave Namibia is broadcasted on NTV Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. and 1up2.com, as well as broadcasted on the following Facebook platforms on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Republican, Allgemeine Zeitung, Namibian Sun, and all Namibia Media Holdings pages. For more information, contact the Brave team at brave@synergy.com.na. Brave Namibia, for the ordinary and extraordinary Namibians.
Thank you for staying with NMH at 1. Let's have a look at the highlights from this afternoon's broadcast. 11 people were killed on Saturday, including 2 police officers, in a crash at an overcrowded stadium concert in Kinshasa, headlined by Congolese superstar singer Fally Ipupa. In South Korea, more than 150 people were killed in a crowd surge and stampede, the cause of which is still unclear. While in India, at least 81 people were killed when a footbridge packed with sightseers collapsed and plunged them into the river below. And Namibian featherweight boxer Sakaria Desert Storm Lucas with his team are adding final touches to his preparation as he readies to fight American Raymond Ford.
Those have been your highlights. Remember to tune in every weekday at 1 p.m. to spend your lunch hour with Animated One, catching up on the latest news in Namibia, Africa and the world, ranging from current affairs, economic news, sports and international headlines. That is it from us in studio, but don't go anywhere because up next is Irongo Talk with news from Namibia's coastal region.
Hello viewers and welcome to another exciting episode of Irongo Talk. I'm your host Nicanor Nangolo and today we are here at the Walvis Bay Municipality where as per usual we bring you your latest news updates, weather tides, and today we also speak to Cliff Shikwambi who tells us more about the Irongo Business and Tourism Expo, how it went down and what we can also expect for next year. So make sure to stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break. now for our first story of the day, the Wesco Group of companies officially launched its Oranjemund branch recently. The mayor of the town, Elias Kasemba, welcomed the move and hailed the opening of the office as another massive development for the town. Oranjemund has had a productive 2022. This shows that we are moving in the right direction in transforming our town. Wesco's investment is evidence of the company's willingness to contribute towards the economic growth, future prosperity, and transformation of Oranjemund. Kasemba thanked the management of Wesco, the contractors involved, and the dedicated workers who participated in making the venture a reality in Oranjemund. He also expressed the hope that Wesco would buy into the vision of the town council to uplifting the local community through job creation, addressing the issue of land and housing, as well as to maintain its social responsibility through charitable giving and supporting local businesses. George Fransman, the director of Wesco, thanked NAMDEB for making the premises available for renting and enabling Wesco to extend its activities to Oranjemund. Fransman explained that the name of the company stems from the West Coast Engineering and Salvage Services, a company started by his partner Anton Pretorius in Walvis Bay. And now for our second story of the day, the Walvis Bay Corridor Group engaged various stakeholders and lobbied Zimbabwean logistic businesses to make use of the port of Walvis Bay as part of a marketing drive. According to Mbahupu Sivuikwa, the CEO of the Walvis Bay Corridor Group, these engagements were fruitful as they culminated in a proposed strategic alliance with Bark Logistics, one of Zimbabwe's biggest transport and logistic companies, with various partnerships that enable it to have an international reach. The proposed partnership will enable Bark Logistics to assist Walvis Bay Corridor Group with marketing and business development activities in Zimbabwe, in exchange for the Walvis Bay Corridor Group opening opportunities for Zimbabwean cargo through Namibia. The collaboration ensures that the Walvis Bay port and corridors are consistently promoted in the Zimbabwean market. Chiviko explained that the strategic partnership with Bark Logistics aims to drive volumes on the import and export of goods from Zimbabwe via the port of Walvis Bay. We are forming a partnership with Bark Logistics. We complement one another and we will share information and possibly increase our market share while at the same time ensuring that we create efficiency in the supply chain. And now for our third and final story, flights between Eros Airport in Windhoek and Walvis Bay International Airport is a reality. Fly Namibia recently launched its 3 days a week flight schedule between Windhoek and Walvis Bay. The flights commenced on the 28th of October and sales have already started. The route between Eros Airport, Windhoek and Walvis Bay will be serviced 3 days a week on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. A 14-seater Beechcraft 1900 will be used for the flights, which will cost between 1,950 and 2,290 Namibian dollars, depending on the time of the month. In a speech made on behalf of the Erongo Governor, Neville Andre, the Erongo Regional Council Chairperson Benita Imbaba stated that the timing of the launch of a direct flight could not have come at a better time. This is a given fact that the tourism industry was on its knees as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. This launch falls within our strategy to recover the regional economy, especially our tourism industry. Walvis Bay is an important logistical port for the Southern Africa as it provides port facilities for the import and export of cargo for the rest of Namibia, Zambia, Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as Botswana. Now, if you want to read more on this or any of our other stories, you can check out our website. That's at www.erongo.com.na. Up next, we have our interview, so make sure to stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break.
Erongo Talk brings you community news in the Erongo region. Erongo Talk aims to reach coastal residents, keeping them updated on what's happening in their community. This show is broadcasted on NTV, 102.com, and cross-shared on the following Facebook platforms: Erongo, The Republican, Algemene Zeitung, Namibian Sun, and Namibia Media Holdings. Erongo Talk focuses on community news, weather update, fishing report, helpful tips, as well as sport and entertainment. For news-related or advertising queries, contact irongatalk@synergy.com.na. Ironga Talk, our community, your news.
The My.NA Property Focus page is published every Tuesday in the Market Watch, which is inserted into the Republican, Namibian Sun, and Allgemeine Zeitung. The My.NA Properties Focus page provides viewers with the best in-class property content, engaging interviews, the latest property news, property-related products and services, including interior design, decor, DIY, gardening, property finance and insurance, and so much more. For property-related news and advertising, contact My.NA at synergy.com.na and talk to the My.NA property team.
Market Watch is a daily publication covering the most important market-related topics. You'll find the economic indicators and company news in brief on a daily basis. Market Watch also features interesting and informative focus topics like medical, properties and cars weekly. The ever-popular classifieds as well as tenders and vacancies can also be found in the Market Watch, which is a part of the daily NMH newspapers, namely Republican, Allgemeine Zeitung and Namibian Sun, reaching audiences all over the country and possible new clients.
Okay, with me here is Cliff Shukwambi, who's one of the many hands behind the Irongo Business and Tourism Expo that is taking place at the Walvis Bay Municipality. Now, Cliff, we're sort of halfway into the expo. How is it going?
Leandre, I can tell you without a doubt that the excitement in the town of Walvis Bay is a hype.
Yes.
You've seen it for yourself, the play park, you've seen it how the exhibitors are doing their thing. The SME stores are buzzing. Yes. We've received positive feedback about great proceeds being made. They actually labeling it as the best, or in fact the highlight of the year for them as businesses. So you can actually see that in their individual capacities from where they trade, they're not generating as much money as they're generating right now at this exposition. So that for us is a highlight. You see the corporate stands fully manned. They've come out in numbers. I understand from my colleagues as well that NAMRA signed up. NAMRA is putting up their stall. They're exhibiting as well. Yeah, coming through, you know, talking about the tax submissions and so forth. So we're excited, really. We're really excited. We're sitting in the exposition symposium right now. And this as well is another value add that's drawing numbers and very fruitful discussions to the exposition. So I must really tell you in a nutshell, we're excited and we're really looking forward to ending this exposition with a bang.
Awesome. Now, Cliff, tell us about how many stalls that we've got here and corporate SMEs. Are the SMEs more than the corporate?
Well, you know, funny enough, yes, they are. They certainly are. Look, the corporates tally about, say, almost 40, whereas the SME stalls are a little over, say, 60 or so. So that's a very, very big number if you'd add. I mean, in total, if I'm not mistaken, we have a total of about, say, 170 stalls. Now, you just take the 170 and if you go around the stalls, you'll see that every stall is manned by at least one or two principals. That will give you a rough appreciation of how many exhibitors we actually have on the grounds right now. But that's separate to the total feet that are walking in and out of the expo yards. That's just another number on its own. So we're quite excited, really. It's very big, and we're hoping that next year we go bigger.
Awesome. Now, Cliff, there's also a very smart partnership behind the Irongo Business and Tourism Expo. Your company is also involved. Just tell us about why did you decide to join forces, or why did the entities decide to join forces?
Well, Leandre, that's a very good question. Look, the world, not just Namibia, was plagued by COVID-19. And when COVID-19 hit the shores of the world, including Namibia, many businesses shut their doors. Some died during the process. The Irongo region was longest closed down because this is primarily, where the pandemic was first detected, and we were literally closed for trade for the longest of time. Now 2 years was just way too much, So the exposition in itself is in existence for about 16 years. For 2 years, it couldn't trade, marking this the 14th year that we're trading since its establishment in 2006. Now, after the reopening for business, and I'm very excited about the fact that we can trade now again and make money, and of course also just promote economic development in the country. The Irongo Business and Tourism Expo, in partnership with the Walvis Bay Municipality, where we are exhibiting from, and of course my business LSK Consulting, just taught us again that if you want to go far, you need to you need to rethink the way you do business, because on your own, you go far, you go fast, right? But together, you can go far. Hence, the birth of the theme of this year's exposition, Rethink, Reimagine, and reinvent value chains for economic development post-COVID-19. And we're saying COVID-19 as the current pandemic. But who knows? Tomorrow the world could be plagued by another pandemic. So we basically saying is strengthen value chains, rethink the way we do business. It can never be business as usual. Let's adopt a business unusual principle, right? And strengthen your value chains, your networks with whom you do business, your supply partners, your supply networks, where you source your goods and services from. Strengthen that value chain, that in the midst of adversities, you don't just survive as a business, but then you are able to thrive as a business. So the symposium draws, say, the likes of the MTCs, the Irongo Reds, NAMDOC, and industry principles to also help us unpack, discussions around how you can rethink, how you can reinvent, how you can reimagine and restart, value chains, and how do we move forward now, knowing that it can never be business as usual.
Oh, no, definitely. I mean, the theme is so fitting to this year's expo. Now, what can the people expect next year, Cliff?
Well, I can only say watch this space. But one thing that is certain, Leandre, is that it is going to be bigger. It will be better. And we are going to blow the rooftops of the nation. We are regarded as the third largest exposition in the country, second to the Windhoek Expo, Ngwediva Trade Fair, and now the Irongo region. But in the region, we are the premium exposition, and we want to raise that bar to be, if not the first exposition in the country, the premium exposition in Namibia. Walvis Bay, without a doubt, is the commercial hub of Namibia. This is where trade happens, right? We have the blue ocean with the blue economy. We've got the maritime sector. We've got the transport sector. We've got the mining sector in this region. I mean, we are so endowed with minerals and natural resources. So basically, this is a region that buzzes with economic activity. So